Oh, that was a big one. All right, so as most of you could probably tell, we are not in the usual outfit that we have. We are in the Canoe today. As you can see, we have flip-flops as normal, but we're low profile on it. If you guys follow along with the channel, that you know my boat is out of commission because I cracked my transom. And what that means is my motor was about ready to fall off, but that doesn't mean the videos are gonna stop. We are still gonna keep going fishing, but we're gonna do it in a different fashion. So from now on, I'm gonna consider myself the Canoe kid, and that's what we're gonna be doing. I know I'm 28 years old, not really a kid, but we're gonna be the Canoe kid for a while. So we have trusty old Canoe. We are gonna be roughing it with a paddle, and today we're frogging it. So as you can see, we have this beautiful field of just all kinds of grasses. We have hydrilla, we have you know, some small lily pads, duckweed, there's arrowheads, bigger lily pads. We have a mix of truly every kind of vegetation today. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk you through some of the baits that I brought with me when I go in a canoe, hopefully show you guys some sweet fish catches in the process, and I'll break down how I go about setting up a canoe so those of you guys that don't have boats or broke your boat like I did can still go fishing and still have some fun. So let's go fishing. So the first bait that I'm gonna be throwing is going to be a frog. This is a Z-Man Leap Frogs. It is just a traditional pointed nose style frog. And I'm gonna turn us so that way I'm not pointing you guys directly in the sunlight. Hopefully you can see me a little bit better now. The other bait that I brought with me is a Divine Swim Jig by 6 Cents. Great grass fishing bait, especially in the summertime, because it goes through thick grass really well, and I'll break y'all down how I fish that. And then I have 2 spinning rods with me. And I know what you're thinking, why would I bring spinning rods into stuff like this? Well, because there is still holes in the grass and bass can still be finicky. So got a Gary Yamamoto Senko Texas rigged on there, because if you don't have a Senko when you're fishing, I mean, what are you doing? And then I have this little baby that is rigged up with a ZWG new hook by Z-Man. And I'm gonna be throwing some flukes on that one if I get into some areas with a little bit more open grass. But that's the game plan for today. I would like to be able to catch them frogging. You know, some of this duckweed out here looks amazing. And the key to fishing this duckweed and these mats is looking for the greenest mats, because those are typically where those fish are gonna be living, because those are the mats that are producing oxygen. So we're gonna go frogging first and see what that holds. So when you're in these endless vegetation fields like we have here, there's 2 schools of thought. You can either stay close to main channels and try to find those fish that are trying to get in that deep water. Those are what I call community fish, because as you'll be able to see, there's a clear path cut through a lot of this stuff. It's a pretty big pond, you know, it's probably 10 acres, or actually it's way bigger than 10 acres. It's a pretty big pond. And yeah, there's a main channel that runs through all this grass, and so there's a lot of fish that are going to sit on that channel or just off of it because they want to have deep water access, right? That's a key thing in the summertime. It's probably 90 degrees out right now. But there's also going to be option number 2, which is you can find small isolated groups of fish back in places in these vegetation fields. And for that, we're gonna have to break down some of the different types of vegetation, and I'm gonna have to walk you through what to look for in the grass, so that way you can get on those little groups of fish, because those are the most fun. We're back. Not a big one, but it's a bass. Oh, that was a big one. Yeah. Now we're cooking with gas. That's a better one there. That's a better one, boys and girls. Nice. So before I get too far ahead, I'll show you exactly what I'm doing with this frog to get it to do the things that it's doing, and a couple things that you could potentially do to this frog. First things first, I'm only throwing it on a 7-to-1 gear ratio ARC G5, which will be linked down below as always, because I like to be able to have the muscle force that a 7-to-1 has to be able to pull that frog out with the fish on it. And then the rod, I'm throwing it on a 7.3 mag medium heavy ARC Essence, has a full cork handle, which I absolutely love for the balance. And then I have 65-pound Cortland silent flip braid. Because it's flat, it lays on top of the vegetation better, but it still cuts through there, which is awesome. Now the frog, I told you, is that it's that Z-Man Leapfrogs, I believe is the name. Well, I'll have it linked down below anyway. But what I've done is this frog is actually super soft, so I didn't have to boil this one at all. And you can watch, I don't even have to put any force behind that to collapse that frog. And then what I truly love about it is how much hook gap there is on this frog. Super wide hooks, and you can see every single fish that I've caught has that frog absolutely choked, because this is so soft that the body of it just collapses almost immediately. Which, if you're throwing a frog and you're missing fish, or they're getting its skin hooked, that's the problem, is your material is too hard and those fish don't have a chance to really get it. So that's what you need to do, is you can boil it. I've done some YouTube shorts on it to show you how to boil a frog if you need to boil your frogs to make them softer. But that is how I'm actually catching these fish. If you also find yourself missing fish on a frog, you can actually take and bend these hooks out and take some pliers and bend them up slightly, because you can see I'm underneath the ridge here, which is in the design of this frog because it keeps it from getting hung up, which is something that I love. But if your frog isn't getting that hook penetration, consider bending your hooks out and bending them up a little bit, and that'll help you land more fish on a frog. So you can see we've kind of maneuvered spots a little bit. You can see right here, the area I'm fishing is really narrow to this main channel we have running right here. Versus over here, you can see it's this giant expansive flat. In the springtime, that's probably where I would want to be, because I have a better chance at finding those fish shallow when they're getting ready to spawn. But with it being summertime, they want to be closer to this main channel here. And so what I have is I have this super narrow strip, which means I have a lot better chance of running into those fish if they're underneath these mats, versus out there I could be fishing for hours and never run into a bass. So this just gives me a higher percentage chance of running into a fish, which is what I like, and so that's why I started on this narrow strip. Oh, that was a big one. Whew. Ooh, missed it again. Oh my God, I don't know what that is, but it's huge. So if you guys are like me, you're looking at that video going, man, these fish are really getting that frog. I miss more fish on a frog than I catch. How is he catching so many fish on that frog? Well, I really like this Z-Man frog, but I'm going to show you how I modify a typical frog in order to increase your hookups. Because if you're a guy that misses a lot of frog fish, this is what you need to do to your frog. So typical frog, this is that Z-Man Leapfrogs. You can see those hooks don't come above the body. And the benefit is this is a super soft frog, so it doesn't really matter. But if your frog is a little bit stiffer, sometimes you might have to adjust it. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to take and bend out on these hooks to where you can see now all of a sudden that body rocks a little bit and it gets a little bit of separation from that body. Now the next thing is I need a pair of pliers. Now the next thing you do is you can still see those hook points are below that body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a hold of that hook and I'm going to bend it up. Like so. Now you can see that hook point sticks above that body, and it's just going to be easier to catch on that. And then you go ahead and do that to the other one as well, and you're just bending it ever so slightly up, because now those hooks are pointed up. You can see there's a little bit of gap in the body of that frog, and that's going to increase your bites to land ratio when you're fishing a frog. When you look out across here, you can see that it looks seemingly all the same, but it's not. It really isn't. So if you look, you can see the discoloration right here in different colors. Some of it's really bright green, some of it's dull green. Sometimes there's little vegetation inside of the duckweed and lily pads. Sometimes the pads are bigger. Sometimes there's different edges, and all of this needs to be considered when you're looking out across these big expansive flats. Right here you can see there's a stump, another stump right there. And so you have to be aware of that. And what you have to look at is where there's deeper water underneath of this, where there's shallower water. So you have to look at your graphs to figure that out as well. Look at what vegetation mixes where. You can see there's a clear edge right here that those fish are going to want to be on. And all that I take into consideration when I'm frogging, because it's just like anything else. You have to know what the underlying features are to know where to target. Boom, there's a good one. That's the right kind. Oh, ripping my hands up. Good night. That joker clobbered. That's about 4 pounds right there. I needed that. So another key when you're out here fishing these mats and frogging and just fishing matted vegetation in general is just stopping and listening. If you can hear in the background, there's actually bluegill, and you'll hear them popping. It's like a sound across the whole surface, and that's how you know that there's food in that mat, because for the bluegill to be there, the algae has to be alive and there has to be insects and whatnot living in there. And what that does is that brings in the bluegill, which brings in the bass. So turn off your headphones, turn off your music, and just listen. I've heard guys pull up into mats, they will drive full bore into a mat, shut off, listen. If they hear bluegill, they mark it and they leave if they get on that kind of a pattern. And so just keep your ears open when you're fishing mats, and it'll increase your productivity in finding good mats. So we're gonna keep this series going in the canoe. We're gonna keep it going. I've officially named the canoe Shirley. So the Shirley series of canoe fishing is gonna be a thing. I'm gonna try to do a weekly video of me fishing in the canoe, because without having a boat, it makes shooting videos pretty difficult, but we're gonna keep that alive. But we're also gonna keep alive the Bible verses at the end of this, and this is an important one. So if you guys have been following along, I want you to pay close attention to this one. This one was Mark, I think it's either 6:11 or 9:11. And it hit home this past week. I was on a mission trip, and it wasn't the experience I was hoping for, and so I relay that into this quote. And it says, "If you're not welcomed, not listened to, quietly withdraw. Don't make a scene, shrug your shoulders, and be on your way." And that was a big deal for me, because guys, as a Christian, you know, it was a Mennonite mission trip. I've been going to a Mennonite church. Everybody comes from different backgrounds, and at this mission trip, I found that I was the only person that wasn't homeschooled, didn't grow up religious, and so I really didn't have a lot to talk about with the people that I was working with, and it made me feel like an outsider. And so if you guys are in a church setting and you're going to church regularly, that's awesome. But just remember, Jesus didn't go to churches to look for people. He went to bars. He went and hung out with taxpayers. He went all over, because everybody comes from different backgrounds, and he didn't come here to save the righteous hearted. He came here to save the wicked. So in that scenario, I felt like the wicked. I definitely didn't feel like I was being saved. So I know it can be hard, and I know judging is easy, but remember, we're not the ones that's supposed to judge. You know, we're just supposed to have an open heart, an open mind, love each other as our neighbor, and, you know, do the best we can to relate to one another, and you know, be friends. So God bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't hit that subscribe button already to follow along, do that to follow along with the series. But I hope to see you guys in the next video. you.